Well, hello there, YouTube. And if you're watching this video, I'm sorry for you. How to choose a power supply. So, basically, this is Petey's guidelines. There's maybe a right and a wrong way about everything, and that's really not what I offer here. I offer uh, guidelines, kind of general guidelines. So, the first thing that needs to be determined when choosing a power supply, and this can occur. This can go down on eBay. You can look for a power supply on eBay, or you can hunt around at resale stores, which is really the best way to do it. Typically, they will charge $1.99 or $1. If you go up there and it doesn't have a price tag, depending on who you get, they might. There's a chance they'll give it to you for 99. He $2'd me today. The guy at Goodwill, $2 for a power supply. I've never paid $2. Well, maybe for one of those big honking, like 12 volt 5 amp. That's worth $2. Uh, the first thing that needs to be determined is the power supply that you're purchasing. Does it put out AC or DC? 95% of the power supplies that are on the market put out DC. You have to read this fine print in here. And it will say, there's actually even an image for DC, which is, it's a solid line and then a little minus symbols. Typically looking at it now, see, like on this one, the information is down here. It's in here, and you're going to need your glasses and maybe even a nice flashlight. This one here, it's got the symbol. There's a line. There's a solid line on top and 3 little dots. That means DC. A lot of times it'll say input 120 volts AC, and then output it'll say like 9 volts DC. And then there's the milliamperage. So the first thing, is it an AC adapter or is it a DC adapter? And your device will tell you. If it's a AC, it will say AC. Sometimes it'll just be like 9 volts, 500 milliamp, and it's DC. Does the unit take batteries? It's probably DC. Like I said, 95% of the power supplies on the market are DC output. If you plug in an AC adapter into a DC device, bye-bye device. If you plug a DC adapter into an AC device, it might even work, depending on what it is. But a lot of times maybe the light will come on, it'll be dim, but maybe it'll work. If it's an audio amplifier, sometimes they work. Again, guidelines. Petey's not that smart. But the second thing, what are we, 18 minutes? 4 minutes in, we get to voltage. So this is 9 volts, 12 volts, 5 volts, 3 volts, 18, 19 and a half, 24, 32, 48. 5 and 12 are the really popular ones now. And with the voltage, it's kind of important. It really is. You can get away with some leeway, especially depending on what it is. Like if it's an old motorized thing, whoa, and it says 9 volts, hit it with 24. It'll scream. It'll do its job twice as good. It's nice to have one of these a multimeter, and then you can test it, because especially the further you go back in time, the more leeway there is on the unit. It'll say 9, you plug it in, and it's putting out 36. They always ran them a little hot back in the day. And the thing with the circuits is the capacitors have ratings. They're 16 volt capacitor. So if it says 9, you can hit it with 15 volts maybe, depending on what it is. If it's a digital thing, they're picky. They're going to want right on the money. So when you find the newer power supplies that are been produced, they're much more accurate as far as the voltage. The older ones are always overrated. They're always high. Like it'll say 9, it's like 14 volts. Like, whoa. You can get away with under a little bit. I would think under is better than going over. And again, like knowing about it, like if it's a 9 volt device, and will it take 12? Probably. But not recommended. We want to really match the voltage. There's a thing called a touch test where if you're not sure, you hook up one wire and then you put a fuse on it and you touch it and see if does it come on, does smoke come out, or does the fuse blow. But we don't want to get into that laying on of hands business. So voltage is important. Is it AC? Is it DC? Is important. The next thing is the milliamps. It'll say 0.5A, which is a half of an amp. It'll say 500 milliamps, which is the same thing. Now, the milliamps is where we have some leeway if you're going hot. Meaning, let's say your device it's looking to see 9 volts, 500 milliamp, but your power supply is 9 volts, 2 amp. It's got 4 times as much oomph. Well, that's fine. It's not going to push that oomph into the thing and blow it. That oomph is going to sit here. Power supply is going to be going, oh, I'm just putting out a little bit. I'm taking it easy. Your device is getting everything it needs, and the rest of that power is staying back. If you're low, well, that's going to affect the performance of the unit. And there's that watts stuff. We're not going to get into that. The last thing is the polarity, and that's is this outer core negative or is it positive? And typically they'll have a picture drawn of that. It'll be like 2 diamonds, a couple of lines going in, and then a circle. And they'll be pointing at the outside and the inside, and then they'll have the plus and the minus. And they'll tell you what the polarity is. But you're going to need magnifying glass or if you bifocals. And the other way of testing that, which is, for me, it's easier than reading it, is just putting the meter on it. So a lot of times, let's say you've got this device, it says 9 volts, 500 milliamp, and you don't have the power supply. You can go to Goodwill. Let's say you know that it's the center is hot, it's positive in the center, and the outside is negative. So you go to Goodwill, and the only one they have is a 10 volt, 1 amp, and it's reverse polarity. Well, that's fine. You got 1 amp, your device only needs half of that, but that extra amperage is just going to stay back. 10 volts is just like 9. It's not really going to matter. Trust me, it's not. But your polarity is backwards. Your positive and minus are flipped in reverse. So at that point, you buy the cable, you take it home, you cut the wire, you flip it, solder them together, put heat shrink or masking electrical tape over it, and then when you're done, you test it with your meter because, man, you want to talk about screwing it up. I've had to do it 3 times sometimes. So getting that polarity is very important. Really, the polarity is very important. Hitting it with reverse polarity is not good. Sometimes the designer will put a diode in there, which will kind of like maybe prevent that, or maybe it'll blow the diode. but still you got to replace the diode then to get it working. So, and that diode will shave off a little voltage too. Like it does its job, but you got to pay the toll, and then you're not optimal at that point. So that's Petey's guidelines on finding replacement power supply, and generally. They're good. What I mean by that is, what are the chances of you buying one and it doesn't work? Because that's happened. It's happened, but it's rare. And typically, you're going to find 12 volt and 5 volt. The 5 volts are really popular now because all of the phone stuff is 5 volt, and that's the standard with USB. So if they make stuff that's going to interface with the USB cable to the computer, it's 5 volts. So then they make power supplies for people that don't have the computer, and there's a lot of 5 volt stuff out there now, which there used to not be. It used to be, 9 and 12. 9 was really popular. And then 6 volt, 3 volt sometimes, kind of rare. But yeah, that's Petey's guidelines for finding a replacement power supply. I wish you luck. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of me. I can help you out. If you're really in a jam, what I would say is, if you really need help or you want to ask a question, find my email. You can go into contacts or whatever, you can snoop around and find my email and email me, because having to try to solve your problem in a little tiny window where I've got to type, and every other word, it's like going, it's a little, that's not good. You could Skype me, anything but trying to work and explain stuff to people in that YouTube comment. I don't do that. You can email me. I'm not going to, sell your email address to India, some telemarketer or something. I'll help you out. Anyway, good luck with that. Be careful. Always get a meter. I have the Innova 3320, and I've had 2 of these. They last me years. They're good enough for what I do. You can get them at Walmart, or you can order them online. It's called a INNOVA. Now, of course, you never want to use this for 120 or 220 volts AC. This is only a hobby meter. It's not really, trustworthy as far as putting your life on the line or something. I only use this for low voltage DC stuff. As any $20 cheap, all those cheap meters are dangerous to use for, if you're going to be betting your life on it, you're going to want to spend a couple $100 or up. And believe me, it's easy to do with a quality meter. But for everything that I do, this is fantastic. And this, it has something on here called continuity, which it lets you know when you have contact. And this is a great tool for troubleshooting all sorts of stuff. You can use that to figure stuff out. It does current draw tests to figure out how much of those milliamps that the thing is drawing, because there's the volts and then there's the amperage. They're 2 different things, and it's the amperage that'll kill you, and it's the amperage that's kind of important. So if you don't know what something's running, you can find out, how much of that it's taking, how much it needs. You can find out by hooking it up to this meter, and it's another way to determine what you need. Go a little high, let's say you don't know. Put it on a 9 volt 1 amp, and then test this, and it comes up and it says, hey, it's only using 30 milliamp. Well, and then instead of throwing that 1 amp at it, you can find a 100, 200 milliamp power supply when you're out. Grab one. We have a significant collection of power supplies here. I know someone who was like, I hate those things. Gave me a bag of like 15 of them. It's like, why would you say that? them. I mean, they're not the most ergonomic thing. You can always, one of the things that I like to do is take an extension cord and cut it down, make it about that big, and use heat shrink tubing on it. Not electrical tape. I'm over that. Then you have something to plug a couple adapters into, and it's a little bit better than having them not so ergonomic. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's Petey Two Fingers guidelines for choosing a replacement power supply. Stay cool, stay warm, hug your pets, and peace.